What is data modeling? Data modeling is the process of creating relationships between multiple data sets. Now, these relationships are established by relating the primary key and the foreign key. Now, once relationships are in place, these data sets act as a single data model, which can be used for the purpose of visualization and reporting. And what is data normalization? Data normalization is the process of organizing your tables and the columns in a relational database to reduce redundancy and to preserve data integrity. In a normalized data set, each table serves distinct and specific purpose. This brings us to the types of tables we have in a data model. The data model generally has two types of tables, which is the data or facts table and the lookup or dimension table. The data table contains numbers or values. They are typically at a granular level with the IDs or keys of columns that can be used to create table relationships. While the lookup tables provide descriptive, often text-based attributes about each dimension of a table. Now, if we look at the data set, you notice we have the territory, sales territory region, sales territory country, sales territory group. These three values can be used to create the sales territory dimension. Now, if we also look at the birth date, marital status, gender, yearly income, English education, English occupation, house owner flag, number of cars owned. Now, these values are attributes of a customer or attributes of a person. These values can be used to create a customer dimension table. From the definition of a lookup table, the lookup table is also called the dimension table. So when I say the lookup table, just know I'm referring to the dimension table. And when I say dimension table, know I'm referring to a lookup table. So the dimension table, like I mentioned in the definition, it provides descriptive attributes. Now, looking at this customer dimension table, you can see it's giving a description of a person, maybe the person's birth date, the person's marital status, the person's gender, the person's yearly income, the person's English occupation. This obviously gives a descriptive attribute of a person. If you look at the territory dimension table as well, you see it's giving a descriptive attribute of a territory, a region, a country, or a group. If you also look at the product name, product color, and product subcategory name, this gives a descriptive attribute of a product. It gives the color of the product, the subcategory where the product is. It gives the name of the product. These columns can also be used as a dimension table. Now, this table I used as an example is a combination of both the dimension table and a facts table. In some cases, you can have your dimension tables to be separated from the facts table, just like we have in this course. The tables are differentiated already. I just use this table as an example so we can differentiate a lookup table or a fact or a dimension table from a fact or data table. Now, what is a primary key and what is a foreign key? A primary key is a field that uniquely identifies each row in a table. The keyword in a primary key means unique. It is also called a unique identifier. So the primary key is used for a particular person or a particular product or a particular value. Now, if you look at the products, this table, the green column is the primary key, which is our product ID. You can see the product ID 1 is specifically for this product name, Sports 100 helmet black. which means no other product has the product ID 1. You can have several sport helmets, but this particular product ID is for this particular sport helmet that is black. If you look at the territory table, you see we also have the green territory ID, which is the primary key in this case. And you'll notice we have territory ID 1, which is for Canada, Canada region, Canada country, and North America as a group. This territory ID cannot be used for any other country or any other region, because this territory ID specifically is uniquely for that particular country or region. So basically what I'm saying in SS is primary key is uniquely for one particular value or a one particular role. It's a unique identifier. While a foreign key, on the other hand, is a field that refers to the primary key in another table. Now, the foreign keys can have duplicates. The foreign keys are mostly in the facts table. Now, if you look at the facts table being displayed, let me use the annotation so you see what I'm talking about. Now, if you look at this facts table, you notice we have the product ID, which is a foreign key in this case, because when you look at the product ID, you would see duplicates. Just like we have here, you see we have 7 as a value, which is appearing more than once. This is appearing as a duplicate in the facts table. It's appearing as a foreign key in the facts table. Now, this primary key from the dimension table can be used to create a relationship with the sales facts table using the product ID. To create a data model or a relationship, you can use the product ID. You can also do the same for the territory dimension table, where you can use the territory ID to relate the dimension table to the facts table. You can also do the same for the product subcategory table, where you use the product subcategory ID to create a relationship with the product subcategory table in the sales facts table. Now I want us to go back to Power BI, and in the query editor, I want us to change this territory dimension. I want us to change this territory dimension 2 table into the territory group table. So we want it to be a dimension table. We want to recreate it or clean it, transform it into the territory group table. Now to go back to your Power Query Editor, how can you go back to your Power Query Editor since we are not importing any new data source? You can do this in your Home tab. All you need to do is click on the Transform Data option. When you click on the Transform Data, it will take you to the Power Query Editor. This just shows a continuation of where we stopped from. And let's select the territory dimension 2. And I want us to delete the territory country. We don't need it anymore. So we remove it. Let's remove the territory group ID as well, because it's not serving as a primary key. If we look at this territory group column, you would notice we have duplicates. We don't have distinct values. And for a primary key, it should represent a distinct value as a unique value. So let's take it out. Let's take the group ID out. And of course, remove duplicates. And now we can add the index back. using the add column in the add column tab, using the add index from 1. Now let's rename this to product territory group ID. Now this brings us, let's rename this real quick before I forget. To territory group dimension, because this is a dimension table. It contains text-based attributes. This is also a lookup table or a dimension table because it contains text-based attributes. And when you look at this sales table, you see it contains numeric values. This shows that it is a fact table or a data table. Now this brings us back to merging queries. You know, I said earlier that we will talk about merging queries, how we can merge queries later on. Now what I want us to do is, I want us to merge the territory group ID with the territory dimension table. Now how can we do this? In the Home tab, select Merge Queries. And now the second table we want to merge with is our territory group dimension table. Now to merge queries, like I mentioned, we need a column that is common to both tables. Now in this case, the column that is common to both tables is our territory group. So we'd select that, and of course wait for a match to be detected and click on OK. Now you see the old table has been moved to the territory dimension table. Now we can expand this table using the icon next to the column header. And when you click on the icon, it brings us a drop-down list of all the columns that are present in the territory group dimension table. But in this case, we only want the territory group ID table, the territory group ID column. So we'll uncheck every other thing and select only the territory group ID and click on OK. Now, because this column is being referenced from a different table, the column header is being formatted as the column table, which is the territory group dimension, and the column being referenced, which is the territory group ID. Now, when we look at the territory group ID in this case, this acts as a foreign key, because when you look at the territory, when you look at the values, you can see repeated values of 1, 2, you can see 2 is being repeated, and 3 occurs just once. So it's acting as a foreign key. Now, if you look at the territory group dimension, it acts as a primary key. So I'm doing all of this because I want to use it in explaining more about schemas, Snowflake schemas. We'll soon get to that. But I want us to do this because of the example I'm trying to use. Now, I hope that explains more about merging queries. We can now go ahead and close and apply, since we don't need it anymore. Close and apply. Since we are done with the changes. Because Power BI is smart, Power BI would automatically create relationship from whatever it sees. We now have all our values, all our data sets. There are two ways you can create relationship in your data model. You can either create by dragging and dropping, or you can create by using the manage relationships option. To create let's use this for an instance, to create a relationship between the product dimension table and the sales fact table using the product key, which is what we use to form our relationship. Now you can select the product key from either the product dimension table or from the sales table and drag, just click on it and drag and drop. Now make sure to drop exactly on the column header you need. You can make a mistake by dragging the product key to the wrong column. How can you delete a relationship? You can just put your cursor on the line which shows the relationship. Put your cursor on it and right click. When you right click, you have the two options, which is you can either delete or show properties. So in this case, we want to delete, so you select to delete and it will ask you if you are sure you want to delete this relationship. So say yes. If you want to see the two columns that are connected, just put your cursor above the line and you would see the two column headers that are used to form the relationship. Now let's delete this real quick. Let me show you how you can create and delete relationship with the second option. Now in the Homes tab, you would see the Manage Relationship option. Now if you select that, you can either create a new relationship, auto detect, which will tell Power BI to automatically detect relationships. And you also have options to edit or delete a relationship. Because there's no relationship in this scenario, this edit and delete option is not popping up. So let's create a new relationship. All we need to do is click on the new, and it will ask you to input the tables or select the tables and the columns you want to relate. So in this case, we want to relate the product dimension table with the sales facts table. And because Power BI is smart, Power BI will automatically look for a column that fits for a relationship. In this case, the product key is a column that suits a perfect relationship, which is a one-to-many relationship. And click on OK. Now when we close this, you would see the same relationship has been formed. Now what if we want to delete using the Manage Relationship option? All you need to do is click on the Manage Relationship option and select the relationship we're talking about. You want to delete, select it, and you can now see the Edit and Delete options are now highlighted because now we have a relationship. So we can delete this, just select the relationship and click on Delete. So now there's no relationship defined. When you close this, you see we don't have any relationship being defined. Now we have two types of schemas in data model. We have the star schemas and the snowflake schema. Now what is the star schema? A star schema, this is the simplest style of data math. It contains one or more facts table referencing to several dimension tables. If you take a look at the diagram by the side, you would see a colored table which shows a fact table, and you see the non-colored table which represents the dimension or lookup table. Now from this image, you can see that we have a fact table surrounded by several dimension tables, forming a relationship. This type of relationship is called the star schema relationship. Now let's go back to Power BI and let's create a relationship. Let's create a star schema relationship. Now we need to move our facts table to the center and arrange the dimension tables around the facts table. So we have two options to create a relationship. We can either drag and drop. I prefer the drag and drop option, but make sure to always cross-check when you use the drag and drop option, because sometimes you can relate the wrong column to the. In this case, customer dimension, we use the customer key to create the relationship between the sales facts table. We'll also use the product key, drag and drop, the territory key as well, drag and drop. How about the territory group ID? Now, if we look at the sales facts table, you notice we don't have a relationship or a key that is common to the facts table and the territory group dimension table. So these two tables are not connected. How can we connect these two tables? Now, before I explain how we can connect them, if we go to our report view and we try to create a visualization, maybe let's say we want to get the profit by group dimension. You notice we have equal values in each column. It's not giving us an accurate result because there's no relationship formed between these two tables. We need to create a relationship between these two tables. How can we do this? Now, this brings us to explanation of a snowflake schema. A snowflake schema is known as a model with chains of dimension tables. Now, the type of schemas connect two tables that are not directly connected to each other. In this case, the territory group dimension table is not directly connected to the sales facts table. So to connect these two, you will be using a dimension table as a bridge between these two tables. Now, if you look at this diagram, you'll see the colored table, which indicates the facts of the data table. You'd also see the non-colored table, which indicates the lookup or dimension table. You'd see we have chains of dimension table connected to one fact table. Now let's go to Power BI to create this relationship. To create this relationship, we need to have a dimension table that will act as a bridge between these two tables. The territory dimension table contains the territory group ID, and it can also connect with the sales facts table. Create a relationship between the territory dimension table and the territory group dimension table. We now have a snowflake schema type of relationship being created between the sales facts table, territory dimension table, and territory group dimension table. Automatically, these two tables are connected with one another. Now, if we try to create a relationship using the territory group and let's say the profit. I want to use a column. Okay. You notice we now have an accurate result, which shows us that North America has made the highest profit. Europe made the second highest profit, and Pacific made the least highest profit. Now, before we end data modeling, I want to talk about cardinality. Cardinality is a type of connection that exists between two tables. Now, there are 4 types of cardinalities in Power BI. The relationship between these two tables can be denoted by 2 symbols, which is the asterisk and 1. If you look at the relationship, if you look at the lines that shows that a relationship has been formed, you would see either a 1 symbol or asterisk at the end of each relationship. Now, the side that has the asterisk shows that we have many duplicate values. We have many occurrences of a value, while the side that shows 1 denotes that we have just one. We have unique value, which is mostly primary key. We have 4 types of cardinality. We have many to one cardinality. This means that the column a given table can have more than one instance of a value, which is the foreign key, and the other related table has only one instance of a value, which is the primary key. We also have a one-to-one relationship. This means that the primary key from one dimension table will be linked to just one foreign key in the facts table. The one-to-one relationship is just inefficient. The one-to-one relationship is inefficient. You can simply merge these two tables together into one single table. This still respects the laws of normalization since all the rows are unique and captures attributes related to a primary key. We also have the one-to-many relationship, which is the same thing as many-to-one. It means that a column in one table that has one instance of a particular value and the other related table can have more than one instance of a value. We also have the many-to-many relationship. The many-to-many relationship between tables remove requirements for unique values in the table. This states that there are many instances of a value in one table and there's many instances of a value in the second table. The most efficient type of cardinality between two tables is the one-to-many relationship. If we go back to our Power BI, you notice we used the one-to-many relationship between our tables. That brings us to the end of data modeling. We will now talk about DAX. Now, DAX is also known as data analytics expression. Now, DAX is a formula that drives in the Microsoft tools and platforms such as Power BI, Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel, SAS Tabular. With DAX, you can add calculated tables, calculated columns, and measures in your model. Now, what is a calculated table? Now, calculated tables allows you to create new tables based on data that has already been loaded into your model. And instead of querying or loading values into your new table columns from a data source, you can define the table's value using a DAX formula. Now, looking at the syntax, function name, the name of the function you want to use, and the value. Now, let's go to Power BI to create a calculated table. Now, in the data view, when you look at the tables 2 tab, you would see 4 calculations where you have the calculated table, you have the calculated column, measures, and the quick measures. We'll talk about each and every one of these calculations. Let's start with calculated tables. Now, just like the definition we said, we'll be creating a calculated table, which will be our calendar table. Now, this calendar table, what we want it to contain is dates that exist within this data model. Now, all you need to do, instead of imputing the dates in each row, using the calendar auto function, Power BI will automatically look through the data model and give you a list of dates starting from the first date present in your data model to the last date present in your data model. Now, let's click on the new table option. Here in your formula bar, this is where you would write your formula. The name of the table is, let's say, calendar dimension equal to, the name of the function we want to use in this case is calendar auto. So one good thing about Power BI is for every function you write, Power BI will show you the syntax of this function, and it will give you a definition of what the function will do. Now this function, calendar auto, it returns a table with one column of dates calculated from the model automatically. Now we don't really need to input anything, we just need to close the bracket and click on OK. You see we now have a column which shows the list of dates that exist in the data model. We have dates starting from 1917 because we have a customer, in the customer dimension we have birth dates. We have people with the birth date starting from 1917. And when you look at your data pane, you would see the calendar dimension table has now been added. Now calculated column allows you to add new formula-based columns or tables, rather. Now calculated columns refer to an entire table or column, just like we have in your Power Query Editor. We have Add Column tab. This automatically creates calculated columns. It adds new columns that contains your maybe particular extracted value or a merged value. In this case, using DAX, you can add calculated columns just like we add columns in your Power Query Editor. Now, calculated columns understand row context. You cannot use, basically, calculated columns are not used for aggregations like sum, count. You'd rather use measures when you want to aggregate values because calculated columns understand row context. And let's go to our Power BI to create calculated columns. Now let's say from this calculated dimension table, we want to extract, from this date column, we want to extract the month's name or the month's number. How can we do that? Using the calculated column option, all you need to do is click on your table, which is the calendar dimension, and you see the new column option. And when you select the new column option, you see a column has been added which contains empty rows. It's left for you to write your formula. After writing your formula, the extracted value will be inserted into the columns. Now what we are trying to extract is the month number. Let's say month number equals, there's a function called month. The month function also brings the syntax it will follow, and it shows the definition of what the function will do. So the date in this case is the calendar dimension date. So the calendar dimension, this is the table we are referring to, and the date is the column we are referring to. Now let's close our bracket. Now you can see the month number has been extracted from this date. When we scroll down, we'll see other values. Now let's say we want to get the month's name and not the month number. How can we do this? We'd also create a new column because we want to extract a column called the month's name. Select new column and let's name this month's name. Which is equal to format. Now it will ask us what value do you want to format. Now the value we want to format is our date, calendar dimension, dates. because we are referring to this table and we are referring to this column. Comma. It will ask us the format we want to use. Now, there are two formats. There are two ways you can use. You can format the month name. You can format it to a short month name or a long month name. Let's say we want to format this to a long month name. We use 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4M. Because it's a month, you use 4M in lower case and close the bracket. Now, what if we want our month name to be in a short format where we just want to have Jan, Feb, Ma? We don't want the full spelling. Instead of using the 4 M's, you would reduce it to 3 M's. Now, when you reduce, let's rewrite this 1, 2, 3, and you click on OK. You would see it has been reduced to 3-letter words. Now let's take this back to long format. I think I prefer that. So that is what a calculated column is all about. It adds a new column containing the particular value you want to extract. Now let's talk about calculated measures because we are not done. We have calculated measures and quick measures. Measures is a DAX formula used to generate new calculated values. Unlike your calculated columns, measures cannot be viewed in your data view. You can only see your measures when you use it in creating visuals like charts, metrics, and so on. Measures understand filter context, while calculated columns understand row context. Now let's go to our Power BI. Before I talk about how you can create measure, I would like to talk about measures table. The measures tables help us to organize our measures into a particular table. So this table will create a table that is meant for only measures. In situations where you create like 20 measures, you have to be organized with these measures, and the measures table helps you to organize your measures into a particular table. Now to create your measures table, in the Homes tab, you would see your enter data option. Select that, and let's rename this table to measures table since we're using it for the measures alone, and click on load. Now when you look at the data pane, you'd see our measures table has been created. Now for every measure we'll be creating it under the measures table. And select the measures table. We want to create our first measure, which will be the total revenue. Select new measure. And the total revenue is the sum of the sales amount or the sum of the price USD. Let's call this total revenue is equal to sum. Sum is the function in this case. Sales amount. In the sales facts table. We have the total revenue in the measures table, but we can't see the total revenue. We can't see the value in the total revenue. For us to view the value, we have to go to our reports view. Let's display a card visual. And the value we'll be importing is our total revenue. Now you can see the value of the total revenue. So we don't need this column 1 column. You can delete that by selecting the column 1, and in the more options, let's just delete from model. Yes, we want to delete. Now you'd see the icon next to the table header has now changed. This table is meant for the measures only. So for every measure we'll be creating it under the measures table. There are several functions you can use for measures. I just showed you how you can use the sum. You can also use the count function. Now the count function, you have the count function, count A, distinct count, and count rows. The count function just counts the number of cells in a column. The count A counts the number of non-empty cells in a column, both numerical or non-numerical. Distinct count counts the number of distinct value or the number of unique value in a column. Count rows counts the number of rows in a specific table or column. So let's go back to Power BI and let's create a new measure that would be the total customers, which will be a count of customer key. So select your measures table. So select new measure and let's name this total customer, which is equal to the count of the customer key. And let's close that. Now let's display that using a card visual. Now let's change the format from the total customer format. Let's change the measures to format into commas to display commas as a 1000 separator. Select the comma. So now we have 8,160 total customers. Let's also create a measure for the total number of products, and let's use the distinct count in this case. Now select the measures table and select new measure. Let's call this total products. It is equals to the distinct count of products. Let's use the product key. To see that, let's use the card visual as well and check this. We have 102 products. Let's go back to our slide. So now let's talk about the calculate function. The calculate function is very important in Power BI. Is mostly used in Power BI. The calculate functions, it evaluates a given expression or formula under a certain set of defined filter. It works just like the sum if or the count if in Excel, except that it evaluates measures based on any sort of calculation. You can think of it as a calculate if. Now what the calculate function does is it calculates an expression based on a particular condition or a particular filter. Now let's go back to Power BI. Let me use this as an example. Let's say from the total customer, let's go to data view so we can have a view of it. From the total customer, I want to count the number of customers that are females, where the gender is female, is F. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to filter the number of customers based on the condition, which is when the gender is equal to female. So all we need to do is in your measures, create a new measure, and let's call this female customer, which is equal to Calculate is the function we are using here, and it's asking us for the expression. The expression in this case is the total customer, because we've already calculated that as a measure. So let's just write total customer, comma, and the filter here is when the gender is equal to F, which is female. So let's write gender equal to, use your colon here, F, and close the bracket. Now when we go to the visual report view and use our card visual to display, so let's check this. Now this shows us the count of the number of females that are customers. Now if we look at the total number of customers, we have 8,160 customers. This value is showing us that out of the 8,160 customers, 4,048 customers are females. So basically what the calculate function did was it calculated the number of customers where the gender is equal to female. Now let's talk about the quick measure. The quick measure are pre-built formula templates that allows you to drag and drop fields rather than write a DAX formula from scratch. Now instead of us writing the whole formula, like in the case where we wanted to get the total revenue, instead of us writing the whole formula, you can use the quick measure option. When you select the quick measure, you can see, and you select the calculation, you'll see a list of templates that are already available for you. So let's say in the case where you want to calculate a mathematical expression, you have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, so many options. So let's select subtraction just to show you an example. Now all you need to do is drag and drop a base value. Let's say from this measure we want to calculate the profit, and the profit is equal to the sales amount minus product cost. So the base value will be sales amount, and we want to subtract from product cost. When you click on OK, this will automatically write the DAX formula for you. So we didn't write this DAX formula, all we did was drag and drop. But Power BI, because it's a quick measure, it will automatically write the DAX formula for you. Let's just rename this to profit, since profit is the subtraction of the sales amount from product cost. So we've talked about the 4 calculations that are available in your DAX. This brings us to the end of DAX. Now we'll talk about visualization. Now let's move to the last phase or last section of this lesson, which is our visualization. Visualization is like the most exciting part of the whole process. We can take out all of this now since we don't need them. Just select your delete key, or you can right click on the visual In the more option, you can remove. And you can also delete using the delete key on your keypad. Let's explore the different panels or the different panes that are dedicated to creating and formatting charts in details. And we have the formatting pane, the filter pane. The filter pane is where you add filters. You can either add filter to a particular page, you can add filter to the entire page. You also have the visualization pane. This is where you have the visuals. And if you move to format your report page, this is where you have the formatting options. You also have the field pane where you have the list of tables you have and the respective columns and measures. If you look down here, you have page. You can add more pages. You can delete. You can add more page. You can hide. Just right click on the page and hide the page. You can also delete page. There are several visuals available here. You have your stack bar, line chart, area chart, scatter chart, pie charts, just several, so many. You can even import more charts using this get more visual option. But to import charts, you need to sign in into Power BI. Okay, let me show this better. This is where the charts or where your reports will be built. You can format this report by clicking on the format your report page. So we have the page information option where you have the name of the page. If you want it to allow tooltips, allow Q&A. You also have the canvas setting where you choose this type of report page. You can change the size to the 4:3. You see when I try changing it to the letter, it changes. You can also create your own custom where you can insert the height or the width. For this visual, let's use the 16:9. And you can align this canvas to the middle. You can align to the top, whichever way. Let's align to the middle for this. You also have the canvas background where you can change the color of the canvas. So instead of having white, we can change it to black. All you need to do is reduce the transparency. You can also use different colors, not only black, depending on what you want. And you can also import an image for your background. So let me just use an image as a demo. Select an image and let me choose an image that I can just use. Okay. You can now see that we have our image right behind being displayed as the background. You can also increase and reduce the transparency of an image as well. We don't want this image, so we can take this out. You also have the tabs in your report view. You have the home tab, insert tab. This is where you can insert things like the text box, buttons, shapes, images. You can also insert your AI visuals. They are also available in the visualization pane. You also have the AI visuals here. You can also import from other Power Platform applications. In your Views tab, you can change the theme, the custom theme. Let's say maybe the company you work for has a particular theme they use, or you want to create your own particular theme. You can change the theme by customizing current theme, or you can select theme that has already been created by Power BI. For this course, I want us to select the storm. So let's select the storm. Now, when we look at, let's just use this as an example. When you try to select a color, you'd see we have a list of colors. This is different from the color we had earlier, because this is now the theme color we chose. You can also change the page view. You can change it to mobile layout. Now that we have our color theme selected and we've created all our formulas, we can go ahead to create visualizations. Now, before we create visualizations, I'd like for us to change the report page color from white to 10% darker white. Select that. Let's increase the temperature transparency to let's just say 40. Now let's go back to our CMO and CEO questions. We'll be answering the questions using our our chat. So the question of interest from our CEO is interested in knowing which region has the highest revenue. So let's go to Power BI and create a visual that displays the revenue by region. Once you check this, Power BI is smart and it will automatically look for a chart that fits the particular column you selected. Because sales region is a geographical column, Power BI would display a map visual. So I want us to use a column chart in this case instead of a map chart or a map visual. Let's select a clustered column chart, and we want to input our sales territory region, and in our measures table we want to select total revenue. You can now see the list of regions arranged in accordance to their total revenue. So looking at this chart, we can tell that Australia has the highest revenue. It's the region with the highest revenue, followed by the Southwest, the United Kingdom, and Northwest, Germany, France, Canada, and we can see that the Southeast is the region with the least revenue. Now, using these charts, there are other formatting options. When we select this chart and you move to format your visual, you'd see several formatting options. Now, let's explore most of these options together. In the x-axis, you can format the font, you can format the color. Let's change this to black. You can turn off the title. Instead of having sales territory region, you can also turn it on back. You can, the same thing goes to the y-axis. You can increase the minimum points. You can leave it as auto, where Power BI will be the one to auto detect the minimum point. The minimum point is 0, which makes sense. Also, for the values, you can change the color of the value in the y-axis. You can do a lot of things in the formatting your visual pane. You can also change the color of your columns. Instead of having it to be this default color, you can change the color maybe to a deeper blue if that is what you want. You can also change it to a lighter one, basically anything you want. You can turn on the data label. You can turn it off. Let's just turn it on because I think it looks better now. You can also turn off your y-axis. If you don't need it, you can turn it off. Since you have the data label, we don't really need the y-axis, so you can turn it off. If you go to your generals as well, you can change the title. This title says total revenue by sales territory region. That's not bad. You can change the font of your title. You can change the alignment. You can change the color. You can make it bold depending on what you want. So I've aligned this to the center and I've made it bold. You can also add effects like background. You can add borders. Let me show you what those borders are. Let's increase this. Let's add borders. So I've turned on the borders. You can turn it off and turn it on. I just turned it on, and I want to increase the rounded corners to 10. Now when I unselect this, you see it has rounded corners. Now the edges is filled with a black line which is rounded. Let's go back to format your visual. So let's continue from where we start. For the visual border, we can change the color as well. Let's say we want white, and we can increase the rounded corners from 10 to 15. You can also add shadows. Now when we turn off the shadow and we turn it on, you see the changes that has been made. For the shadows, you can also format it. You can change the color from completely dark to maybe a 40% lighter black. You can also change the position of the shadow. You can change it to the center. You can change it to you can change the offset from outside to inside. You can change, let's just leave it outside. Basically, you can do anything with the format option. So what the formatting option allows you to do is format or change the way your visual looks. We also have the analytical pane. Now this pane helps you to add further analysis on your visual. You can either add the average line, a minimum line or maximum line, or a constant line in the case where you have or where you plan to meet a particular target. Now the target can be maybe your target is $1 million. Now you can add the target as a constant line. You can also add an average line. Let me add an average line so we can see what it looks like. When I select add line, you would see a line in between our chart. This helps to enhance your analysis in the sense that once you look at the visual, you can tell that Australia, Southwest, United Kingdom, and Northwest are above the average revenue. They made above the average revenue. And you can also see the ones that made below the average revenue. You can also edit the average line. You can edit the name. Let's say we want it to be, instead of average line, let's change it to average revenue. You can see the series that was added, which is our total revenue. You can also change the line. You can format the line. If you don't want the color to be this, you can change the color to be a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, depending on what you want. You can also increase and reduce the transparency depending on what you want. Let's reduce it to 0. You can change the style of the line. Instead of having a dashed line, you can have a solid line. You can have a dotted line. You can also change the position if you want it to be behind the chart or in front of the chart. You can also add data label. And this data label shows you the value of the average line, of the average revenue. So for the data label, if you turn it on, you can also format it. Instead of having the position to be in the left, you can change it to right. You can also change the color of the data label to a darker blue. And you can change the display units. You can also change the style. Instead of having data value, you can have both the name of the value and the data value. So you can now see that, let me expand this in focus mode. You can now see that we have the average revenue, which is equal to $665,000. So that's what an analytics pane does for you. It helps to further your analysis on your visual. Now the CEO is also interested in knowing the monthly trend of revenue. So let's use a line chart for that. Let's just reduce this a little bit. I'll select the line chart. This shows the total revenue. By month's name. The line is straight where we don't have a particular an accurate result being displayed. This error is caused when we've not created a data model between these two tables. Now we're using the measures, the calendar dimension table, and if you go to your model view, you notice the calendar dimension table has not been used to create a relationship. So now let's create a relationship between the sales facts table and the calendar dimension table using the ship date and the dates column. So let's drag and drop the ship date. Now when we go back to our report view, we can now get an accurate result in our visual. And let me put this on focus mode. And when you look at this visual, you see that the month's name is not displayed accordingly. You have January, June, May, April, March. It's not displayed as January, February, March, April. Now, how can you correct this error? You can correct this by using the month number to sort the month's name. Now, if you go to your data view and you select the calendar dimension table, when you select the month's name, which you used in our visualization, if you select the month's name in your column tools, select sort by. Now you want it to sort it by the month number column because the month number starts from 1, 2, 3, 4, which shows that 1 is January, 2 is February, 3 is March. So sort by the month number column. Now if we go back to our reports, you would sort this by the month's name. Now, for you to sort by the month's name for this particular visual, just select the visual and in the more options, select sort by. Instead of sorting by the total revenue, sort by the month's name. And of course, sort ascending, not descending, because it's starting from, if you look at it, you see January, February, it's going from the back and not from the front. So we want to sort ascending. So now you can see we have an accurate result where we have the January, February, March, April, May, June, July. From this visual, we can tell that we made the highest revenue in June. You can also format your visual pane. And one good thing Power BI can do is if you want to use this exact, let me use the annotation so you can see where I'm referring to. Now if you want to use the exact formatting option that was used in this visual, you can copy this formatting option and just paste it to this new visual. by selecting this Format Painter option in the Home tab. Now all you need to do is select your visual and select your Format Painter. Now you take this brush, you see a brush being displayed instead of our cursor, and click on the visual we are trying to format. So click on this. You can now see we have the exact same formatting option where we have the borders, we have the shadows. We can also format the visual if you are not satisfied with what you want. Let's just turn off the y-axis back because I don't like the fact that it's turned off. Okay. Now we have different formatting options for the line chart. Now the formatting option we have for the column chart is different from the formatting option we have for the line chart. You can turn off the marker, turn on markers in the line chart. You can also turn it off. You can explore all of these formatting options on your own because we can't actually dwell on every single formatting option. Now, how can you insert an image? Let's take, for instance, you have the company's logo and you want to insert the company's logo. How do you do this? In your Insert tab, out of the elements, select Image and search for the image. And click on Open. Now you can resize this and let's just add it to the side here. How can you also add a text box into, let's say you want to write a particular, maybe the title. How can you insert a text box into this visual? All you need to do in your Insert tab, out of the elements, select text box. And you can resize this as well. Let's name this Sales Report. You can also format the fonts. This is a sidewide board, and let's increase the fonts. If you don't like the white background that is being displayed, you can turn it off in your formatting pane. When you select the element, just turn off background. It's that simple. Now the question of interest from the CEO is, the CEO asks for the total revenue. The CEO would like to know the total revenue produced this year. So you can display the total revenue using the card visual. Let's just move this down. And let's display in your measures table. Total revenue is what we want to display. Just like every other visual, you can format it in your formatting pane. The callout value, you can reduce it to 30 instead of 45. You can also format the category label. You can change this to black and change this to Segway board. And also the color value, let's change the color to blue. Let's use the deeper blue. And in your general, you can add shadows and borders. In the elements, let's just turn on the visual border, change it to white, and the rounded corners to thin. And of course, turn on the shadow. Instead of having complete black, let's just use 40% lighter. And the position to center. And let's resize the sound. Let's reduce this so we can have more space. Good. You can copy this visual because now we would want to display the total number of customers, total number of products, and total profit, not just the total revenue. So you can just copy, Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V to paste, and you can move this around. So instead of having total revenue, let's take this out and include the total profit. Good. So let's do the same for total customers and total products. Let's take out the total revenue, include the total profit products. Let's copy and paste as well. Copy, paste. And let's include total customer. Let's just move all of this to the upper part. So you can select, you can move this. So let's just resize this. You can move all of these card visuals at once by selecting all the visuals and moving it around. So you can just move it all around at once. You can also increase the height of this. And this as well. So I'm just resizing this to make it look better. You can also change the position of this. Yes, perfect. Now, how can you share this report with maybe your co-worker or your stakeholder? You can do this by publishing this report online to your Power BI service. If you click on this publish option, of course, let's save this first. It will ask you to sign in. If you don't have a work email address or your school email address, you won't be able to sign up on your Power BI service. I won't be dwelling much on the Power BI service in this course. You can also share this or save this as a PDF in the Files tab. And you need to select your export and export as PDF. Export to PDF. Now you can see the file. You can see the report as a PDF file. So that brings us to the end of the Power BI desktop training. If you have any question, please drop in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.